with these papaya seeds, I've soaked them in water, and what I'm gonna do is this little jelly-like shell, all you gotta do, it's gonna be hard with one hand, but just pop them like this, and then remove that outer shell until you have this, and then you can put it into a fresh bowl, and that is a fresh papaya. So this is a papaya here, and as you guys can see, these are the seeds that are in the middle of the papaya. And you might be wondering, first of all, why do I have to remove the jelly outer layer of the seed? Well, the reason for that is because this jelly layer is so the seeds don't actually sprout inside the papaya, inside the fruit. So Mother Nature created this jelly layer so that the seeds don't sprout. And you can see there are some whiter seeds. My camera doesn't want to focus, but there are some white seeds right here. Those are the younger, underdeveloped seeds. They were going to be like these ones, the adult ones, but unfortunately they didn't make it. Alrighty, so what I've done is I've put these seeds on a paper towel to let them air dry. You don't want to plant them when they're super wet because they can lead to rotting. The seed can rot, so you want to let them air dry on a dry paper towel. This process should only take about a day, and then basically tomorrow I'll be able to plant them. Alright guys, so I'm back outside, and as you can see here, this is the compost mix that I'm using. So I'm using multi-purpose compost, and I'm also using some farmyard manure. This will enrich the soil, and I've also added in some perlite, and also I put in some seaweed fertilizer. This will enhance the root growth and all that. So this is a really good mix for papaya. Again, if I had some cocoa coir, I would have added that in as well to make it more fluffy, or sand, because they do like loamy, sandy soils, but unfortunately I don't have that. But it is still quite loamy, as you can see here, so they should benefit quite well. And I've put in these, this is a 24 seed cell, so there's 24 cells, and I'm going to put 3 papaya seeds in each singular cell to make sure that I will get some growth. So these are the papaya seeds the next day. You can see they're much drier, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put 3 in each singular cell and cover them with soil and give them water, and then you should wait a couple of days and they'll sprout. So again, you want to just put them on the soil and lightly cover them. Don't go too deep, and cover them lightly with soil, and then yeah, that's it. So there you guys go. Papaya has been successfully planted. You can see I've labeled it as well and put a date. And again, if you're wondering what the conditions are of papayas, when they're germinating, they need to be humid. The soil needs to be moist, and it needs to be anywhere between 70 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit for them to germinate successfully. So as you guys can see here on this thermometer that I have, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is just between that 80 and 85 degree mark right there. So these conditions right here are perfect. I also mist the entire greenhouse so that it's humid as well. And after about 2 weeks, this is the growth of the papaya. It's been a little more than 2 weeks, probably verging on to 3, because obviously it's cold here in Ireland. We're in zone 8A, but still, it's not perfect enough to grow these papayas quickly. But nevertheless, they did sprout, and after about 2 weeks, they are, obviously, there's a few in here that are quite stretched and exfoliated, because I had to grow them indoors on a heat mat, because of course the temperatures weren't great outside. It was probably at most 60, 65, and it's not great for germinating these seeds. So some were stretched, well, some are stretched. You can see here there's a few that are stretched, but they are putting out true leaves. If my camera can focus, they are putting out true leaves, so that is always a good sign. There's some here that are growing normally, but necessarily you don't need to start your papaya seeds indoors, but on my first attempt I started them indoors and they didn't sprout, so I had to do a second attempt and it was indoors and it worked. Now you can see some seeds, of course, they have germinated, but they are dying, and that's probably due to the temperature. It is 65 degrees right now and it's just not enough for them. but you can see this is what the true leaves look like. They're kind of triangular shaped. These are the baby leaves, and they're quite rounded off, and once they put out their true leaves, they're more triangular shaped, almost kind of resemble a philodendron. But this is the 2-3 week mark, so they're doing pretty well for 2-3 weeks. When they're at this stage, it's very important that you fertilize them quite often. They're quite heavy feeders, so you want to basically supplement them with the classic NPK liquid solution, and they will thrive. So it's now time to finally repot your papaya. And as you can see here, this is probably after about 1.5 months or the 6-week stage. They've released their true leaves right here, and they're growing a new set of true leaves. So once they get to about 6 inches, which is including the rootstock, that is when you should repot your papaya. I've got a great bunch of these papaya that I started from seed, as you guys can see. And the soil that I'm using, which is probably the most important part of this, what soil mix is appropriate for repotting your papaya, for transitioning your papaya? And the answer to that question is quite simple. You want to use any organic compost, but you got to make sure that it is quite grainy, so kind of very light. So I recommend peat. Peat's kind of the best, like a compost peat. Not a lot of people like using peat, but I do use it, and it's a much better soil than the other soils that have little bits of like sticks and stuff like that inside. I think it's just way better. So for the mix, you want to use about 30 to 40% organic compost, 30% coconut fiber, because that will help ensure that the soil is always moist, or at least, you know, it doesn't dry out, because papaya doesn't like that. And then you want to use a part of perlite and sand. Sand is really important. Sand will ensure, it kind of has that natural climate that papaya grows in, sand. So you want to add sand as well. And then of course you can add some root enhancers and stuff like that, because it's not really necessary, but it will make sure that your papaya does transition and thrive well. Take a look at these roots, you guys. These are some beautiful, healthy looking roots. Beautiful, white, long, and look at them. They are healthy roots, and the plant looks very healthy as well. Again, this is the 6-week mark. You can see it's putting out this classic papaya true leaves, and they're growing pretty well. Now I'm using 3-inch pots. Again, when they're at this stage, you want to kind of use 3-inch pots, and then later you can transition them to 6-inch pots. Again, they do grow pretty quickly depending on what climate you live in. If you live anywhere, for example, like Georgia, Florida, in those zones 10, 11, you're gonna have pretty much from seed to fruit in like 9 to 10 months. They grow super quickly in the right climate. And there you guys go. After a little bit of time and repotting, I've repotted all of these papaya plants. They're growing individually in 3-inch pots. They're looking a bit sad right now, but they will, it's probably just transplant shock, but they will get to themselves in a couple of days. Okay, so it has been about a week since I transplanted all of these papaya into 3-inch pots. And as you guys can see, they are looking really well. They have grew about 1 inch. Again, it's quite little, but I am in Ireland, so it's kind of what you would expect. But they're doing pretty well. They're not showing signs of death at all. They're all doing pretty well. This one's growing kind of slower, but they are putting out some bigger leaves, as you guys can see here. It's all a matter of just patience and waiting. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys learned a thing or two about growing papaya from seed. I really enjoyed this project, and again, I think the papaya enjoyed this project because it's looking very good. It grew about 2 inches since I recorded that last video, the last clip, so it's doing very well, and it looks like it needs another repot. So there's definitely going to be part 2 of this video when the papaya grows a little bit more. But without further ado, guys, thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next adventure.